Hello everyone, it's Al Nygren, Executive Director and Curator of the New Jersey International Film Festival here today with the last of our Filmmaker interviews. I'll introduce our guest to you in a few seconds, but first I wanted to mention to you that the Film Festival will be taking place between June 1st and June 10th on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday evenings. You can go to our website, njfilmfest.com, and click on where it says schedule to check out all the wonderful films that we'll be screening. There's actually 23 films that are in competition for Best of Prizes, Best Documentary, Best Feature Film, Best Short Film, and many of the filmmakers will be there to talk about their films and do Q&A sessions. So check it out, njfilmfest.com. Film programs begin at 7 p.m. and on Saturday there's 5 o'clock and 7 o'clock shows. Today we have the director of Above the Drowning Sea, Rene Balsay, who's come all the way from New York to talk about his film. Rene, tell us how you got involved with making this film.
Well, this was a story I was familiar with through my wife, who's Chinese, and she heard the story from her parents who grew up in Shanghai. And so we knew about this story, and then there was an opportunity to get funding to do a film about it. And I decided to do it basically because of 65 million refugees currently floating around the planet looking for a home. And I thought, well, this might give us a historical lens through which to look at today's crisis and see what we can learn from history.
And it is absolutely a very timely documentary because the plight of the Jews back in the 30s is replaying itself now with a different ethnic minority. And watching your film, I got a little misty at times because these people, nobody would open their doors for them.
Yeah, well, you had FDR, President Roosevelt at the time, going around saying we can't let them in because there might be spies and saboteurs among them. Kind of the same rhetoric we've heard today, except instead of Jewish, it's Syrian or Middle Eastern, insert your ethnic group of choice.
Yeah.
It's probably the only time that Donald Trump has ever sort of channeled FDR. So.
Well, so the film actually takes place initially focusing on Jews that are in Vienna, Austria.
Right.
And so
they were trapped basically by the Anschluss, which is when Hitler and company were sort of invited back into Austria, and sort of they annexed Austria into Greater Germany. And there were tens of thousands of Jews in Austria. They were totally integrated into Austrian society. They had fought in World War I on the sides of the Austro-Hungarian Empire. They were prominent in terms of the arts, the culture, business, et cetera, et cetera. And when Hitler and the Nazis rolled into Vienna, like almost overnight, the Austrians sort of pulled out their Nazi uniforms that seemed to have been hanging in their closet somehow, and the Jews were on the outs. And they thought, well, we're one of them. They're gonna, they're not gonna single us out. Well, they were wrong.
That was not the case. In fact, many in the documentary point out that many waited too long.
Yeah. Yeah.
But there was a savior. There was one person that ended up becoming the person that helped, 5,000 Jews?
Yeah, so what happened is there were these Jewish refugees, because the policy at the time from the Nazis was just to get the Jews out of Europe. And wherever they went, they didn't care as long as they left Europe. Of course, the Nazis made it very difficult for the Jews to get out. It was kind of a catch-22 because they wanted to basically strip the refugees of any property. I think they were allowed to leave at most with 10 marks, which at the time, I don't know what it was, maybe $100 or something. And they made it very difficult. And in order to leave, you needed a country that would take you. There was a conference in Evian, France in 1937 to decide what are we going to do with these refugees. Well, everybody, as Hitler said, shed crocodile tears and expressed concern about them, but basically said, we don't want them. Ecuador said, oh, we'll take them, but at a $10,000 a head they can come. So I think maybe 800 refugees bought their way to Ecuador. But for example, my home country of Canada, there was an immigration official who was quoted as saying, well, no refugees is too many, so we're not going to take them. So all countries were kind of closing their doors on them. The only place in Vienna, the only consul that decided to write exit visas was the Chinese consul Ho Feng Cheng, because at the time Shanghai was an open city. There was a civil war going on in China. There was a Japanese invasion. So the Chinese government of Chiang Kai-shek had plenty of other things to worry about. And Shanghai, which was under Japanese occupation at the time, like I said, was an open city. You didn't require any papers to get in. But you needed a visa to get out of Austria and a visa to get on a boat that would take you to Shanghai. And so Ho Feng Cheng, against the wishes of his government, under pressure to do nothing by the Gestapo, instead decided to start writing visas to save these refugees.
Yeah.
And over the course of a year, he wrote 5,000 visas. At first, he was doing it out of his consul office. Then the Nazis shut him down, and he continued writing visas from a restaurant. Eventually, his government, which at the time was allied with the Germans, because the Germans had been supplying them with munitions in their fight against the communists, his government pulled him out of Austria.
Yeah, it's an amazing story, folks. I'd like to talk even more to Rene, but we've run out of time. But you absolutely must see this film, which is the festival closer on Sunday, June 10th at 7 p.m. It's playing with another film, actually from Shanghai, China, called Crazy Hive. There's no real connection other than the fact that it's made by a Chinese filmmaker. That's the short film. And then Above the Drowning Sea, the feature, will follow it, and it'll take place at 7 p.m. in Voorhees Hall, room 105, which is located on the College Avenue campus of Rutgers University at 71 Hamilton Street in New Brunswick, New Jersey. General admission is $12, $10 for seniors and students. And Rene is going to be there. I'm hoping I can drag you to do a Q&A, and we'll be able to talk to him live. I must also mention that the film is narrated by Juliana Margulis and Tony Goldwyn, which is really quite special.
Yes.
Great. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
After weeks at sea, the refugees sailed up the Wampu River and finally arrived in Shanghai, literally the city above the sea.
And I remember that still. You walk down the ship as you were leaving a subway. Doors open and you walk down the ship. No policing, no nothing, no documents, no showing of anything. And you finally wind up at the port. And that's how we entered Shanghai. Fortunately, the Jewish refugee organizations had sent trucks out